Friday.
Well, just first off, Coach, just how far along are you going into your first practice, kind of where you would hope you would be right now?
Well, I think the only thing that's going to really change for them tomorrow is they're going to be in their official practice gear rather than just Georgia gear. It'll probably be a little bit longer, but we're going to try to stay on the pace that we're on. I think we have a pretty solid rhythm and a lot to learn. And anytime you've got a situation where there's so much teaching of what you're trying to get accomplished and then the repetition of it so that they absorb it, I don't want to get away from that. And I think the most important thing is that we stay in that rhythm and not try to overdo it. And I think the biggest thing this time of year, because it's going to be a change of the time frame, is that you don't put it all in at once like that. It's not all of a sudden where we go from working out for an hour. I think the longest we've been together is an hour and 20 minutes on the court at one time. I don't want to all of a sudden turn it into 2.5 hours first couple of days. So I think just really staying true to that is important and keep them on the pace they're on.
Is this the earliest y'all started, and do you like starting, having the extra time?
Well, it's all been the earliest for me. August 13th was the earliest we've ever been back to school. And we got started right away with that week with 4 workouts. So I don't mind it. I think it's all how you pace your team. And I think that's the most important thing. It's early. Certainly when I'm outside, it doesn't feel like it's basketball season. Today a little bit, but the other days, we're trying to get used to that. But again, we've tried to really make this step-by-step process, you know, throwing different things at them, having certain things that we're doing every day. And I think we've got to keep making sure that we're doing that. But I don't mind it at all.
How's their progress? Are they showing good progress?
I think so. I think every time, you know, right now, every time we get away from making sure that we're shooting the ball at a real consistent rate, you see it. And I think it just goes to show we've got a ways to go right now. I mean, this team last year was, I think, 326 out of 351 when it comes to shooting the three-point percentage. We've got to keep that in mind every day as we build it. Like, we have to make sure, whether it's threes, whether it's pull-ups, you know, whatever we're doing, that we're getting that confidence shooting the ball. Well, the confidence comes because you're passing it well, you're moving well without it, you're getting open looks, you're creating space. And at the same time, when you're working at defending, you're trying to take that space away. So we've just got to be able to look at each day. I've never really been a coach that goes back. I keep all my books, I keep all my practice plans, but I don't really go back to those and say, okay, well, we did this on day 1, we're going to do this again. There are certain things that are constants that we're going to make sure that we do. But other than that, it's really trying to read the pulse of your team and keep the pace of your team where it needs to be this time of year.
What is the pulse of this team, and how have you adapted what you do to that?
I love working with them. I mean, their attitudes, I mean, I've said this from the beginning here. I mean, they're outstanding young men. I mean, and I know we haven't doled out any playing time yet, but I mean, they are really, really good people. They work, they care. Now that mental toughness that comes from being fatigued, the duration of going through something, going through even more competitive situations, you know, that plays in to it, making sure that we're gaining that. But it's a very willing group, it's a spirited group, and everything that we've asked them to do, they're doing. And I think the thing that I like best about it, we gave them some time off this weekend, but I think the best thing I like about it is they like to be in the gym. Now, the real test of that becomes, are they going to continue to do that when more of their day is taken up? You know, when the practices become longer and more in duration. Today's the last day of the 8 hours. Well, tomorrow starts now your 20-hour weeks. And so how will they handle that? Because the separation in a team is, will they continue to stay committed to what they've got to get better at, even when your practices are taking up more of their time? So that's important to me.
Everybody good to go health-wise?
No, we have not had a full group where they could go duration-wise in weeks. Now, it's nothing that is keeping anybody out for. T-Shawn Hightower was the only one that was out for an extended period, you know, with a hamstring injury. But he's back. But we have some limits on contact right now. We have some limits on duration of time being out there. That becomes a daily process. Just coming from a meeting where we're really trying to formulate really our first month of practices. You have to take 12 days off inside of, you get 30 days, you get 42 days to get 30 days. And I know we start tomorrow, but it's already almost too soon for that, because you really never know on a day-to-day basis who you're really going to have. And then we haven't even started the full practices yet. But we're always trying to adjust, and it's not the first time we've done it. and it's important. I think I'm trying to get used to these new time management rules. I'm trying to get used to the allocation of time that we have, getting the schedule out the way that we need to do it. Finding those 12 days shouldn't be hard, but it can be, because you get into the rhythm of practice and you don't want to give it up. But the most important thing is you got to keep remembering it's a very, very long season. And we've been in school since August 13th, and really they only had about 2 weeks off where they weren't with us before that, because we had a really good 8-week session, which we've talked about in the summer. So with that, you got to keep that in mind as you're working through, the times where they're banged up or the times where they're not 100%, and just keep giving the opportunity to somebody else to take advantage of it, but not lose sight of the guy that is injured or banged up, and do what you can to help him get better too.
Going back to shooting a three, Tyree seems to be a guy that would fit that. What have you seen out of him, and how is he adapting to your system?
They all need to fit it. I'm serious. I mean, they all need to fit it. We work on it with everyone. And that doesn't mean that if the game started tonight, not everyone would be shooting the three, but we certainly work on it in practice. But the key thing for Tyree is going to be to get good shots, right? I think the movement of the offense, that's why the more guys you have that can shoot the ball, the more guys that the defense has got to honor past the three-point line, the better your spacing can be. I think Tyree is going to be big in a situation of not only his being able to shoot the ball, but his being able to even move better without the ball, and to find it in different places. And we want to utilize the three-point line. We want to shoot the three, but we can't hang out at the three. It's like when you run on the break. If you just run to the wing, you've killed your spacing. If you're running for a layup and then you get to the corner, you've increased your spacing. I think getting guys comfortable with that, the constant movement that goes into that. And you asked about him, I think he's a key guy for that, because he's going to have the ball in his hands, but there's also going to be many times inside of a possession where he doesn't. And I think the ability to really have a good balance of off the dribble, without the dribble, on the catch and shoot, on the cut, those type of things are important. And we've got to really monitor that in practice and see who's progressing there.
Anybody else in particular really kind of picked up your system and what you're trying to do, maybe more so than others right now?
I don't know if I could answer. I think they've all done a pretty good job with that. But again, we're not this is not 300, 400 level type stuff we're at yet, with them. I mean, it's really trying to get them to a place where they're comfortable, where there's retention, and where they see, how it applies to their game and how it applies to everybody else. So it's really a lot of that. We haven't done a ton of things. I think this is going to be the real difference maker, is who can do it under the pressure of live defense consistently and constantly on a day-to-day basis, because that's where your capabilities are only as good as the consistency you bring to them. And so, like right now, we're building the capabilities and trying to work on that. But once they get into the actions, and now there's pressure, and now they've gone through an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes of practice, can they execute under that fatigue, under that pressure? So all the better answers we go down the line. But I'm not disappointed in anyone whatsoever. And the surprise for me has been on how all of the freshmen have really picked things up. And that's been really good for us.
You've implemented programs before. What's your reasonable expectation for when you expect your team to be at that 300, 400 level?
I don't know. Because the last time we took one over at Indiana, it was all so new. I mean, because we had as many walk-ons as we did scholarship players almost in that time frame. So that was different. I would say this group, because of their commitment to getting better, and we had a few days in the summer where we had to push above and beyond where they were at, so they would understand the kind of mental toughness you got to have to be able to condition and train in the morning, come back and do a workout. We're going to hit that again, because now we're not going to stop lifting. We're not going to stop training. I think the worst thing I could do right now for this team is say, okay, the season started, let's back off on athletic training, or let's back off on strength training. We can't do that. I mean, it's so early. The question was asked about, do we like starting early? We have to keep treating this like it's truly the preseason. The people my brother-in-law, are people that I know in the NFL, they look at the early part of September, that's almost like preseason for them, because of the lack of contact, the lack of hitting, so to speak, that they get inside of the offseason now, that it takes time to get that rhythm. So we just got to kind of read it. That's why you have, I think you keep the pulse of your team. You push them above and beyond, maybe at times where they think they're at, so you can see exactly where they're at. And I think you do that in duration of practice, maybe somewhere in the middle, maybe somewhere at the end, and you get them to go through hard things together. And in the season, once the season hits, Okay, that's where the adversity comes. The adversity of you're having success, or the adversity if you're not having success. Because sometimes success obviously can get you a little complacent too, right? So we've got to be able to create some adversity inside of the practices, and the fatigue comes with that, the pressure comes with that, being able to do it at a high level when it's not as easy for them, and that will help us understand how much we're going to jump into that next level of where we've got to be.